I'm an engineer by training, did a degree in engineering. And so I've seen it through my life and where I've started to push when I became the leader.
Just tell us a little bit about how your positive mindset has enabled you to maintain that success over the years.
I am my own worst critic. Nobody criticizes me as hard as I criticize me.
Hello and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallants, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallants, the self-coaching expert. I'm delighted that Kevin Gaskell has joined me in the studio today. Kevin has led the iconic brands Porsche, Lamborghini and BMW. After driving the turnaround at Porsche and leading 5 years of record growth at BMW, he was recognised as one of the UK's top 40 leaders. He left BMW to set up his first technology business, which grew to be an international success. Since then, Kevin has built or transformed 15 companies, and his teams have created over £3 billion worth of shareholder value. One of his companies was recently recognised as the best private equity investment of the year, and he has played international cricket, but now relaxes by playing in a rock band. With his son, he has walked to both the North and South Poles, not at the same time, and climbed some of the world's highest mountains to raise money for cancer research. And he has recently set a new world record, which he would tell us more about today. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Andrew, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Lovely. Well, we've got a bit of an intro there. So the audience likes to know our guests a bit better. So tell us a bit more about yourself, building on that intro, and where your current focus is at the moment.
Sure. Well, I'm an engineer by training, did a degree in engineering. Then I did an MBA. Then I studied as an accountant because I wanted to broaden my understanding of business. I worked in the engineering sector. Then I worked for a chemical engineering company. And then I joined the motor industry. Joined Porsche at the age of 27. I was there for 5 years before the business got itself in terrible trouble. And, just when you think it can't get any worse, they make you managing director. So I was appointed managing director at the age of 32 in a business that was going through deep distress, and we needed to fix it. I was there for another 5 years. We took it from last in the market to first in the market with a great team of people. I then went to BMW, where I inherited a business that was doing really well, and I was given a business plan. I thought, well, that's not very exciting. I decided we could do more than that, and the business plan was to grow at 4% per annum. And I just thought, there's people here who have got dreams and visions of doing things differently and better, and it was a case of bringing those people together and, again, taking the business onto a whole new level. And actually, over the next 4 years, we grew the business by 80%. And that was great fun. Then I went off and I spent 6 weeks wandering up Everest, sitting in a tent and thinking, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back and do what I've been doing for the last, whatever it had been by then, best part of 20 years. I want my own company. And so I stepped out. I had a dream to change the motor industry with the internet. And the motor industry didn't really get it at that stage. We were too far ahead of the experience. But we created a business called Epics. There's a product called OneLink. You go into any car dealership in the UK now, it is the core product. And we built that, and it was very successful. Sold that business a few years later. I was in Switzerland by then. There was a team running Epics. I was in Switzerland building an international data company which owned Glasses Guide. We turned this into a business in 31 countries, I think it was in the end. Sold that one, came back to the UK, and I've been building companies ever since. And I'm on my 16th or 17th or whatever it is now. Today I'm involved in 7 companies. I actively chair 3 of them. Just have a lot of fun building businesses. And outside businesses, as you've just said, I I go off and I do my expeditions, and the next one will be rowing the Pacific. We go on June the 12th, 2025. So just getting ready for that, kind of 15 months or 16 months to get ready for that. Not that you're ever ready for setting out across a massive ocean in a 20-foot rowing boat, but, we're as prepared as we can be. And that's it. And that's what I do. I build companies for fun. I do expeditions for fun. And I've been doing it for a long time.
And in terms of the rowing expedition, is that with your son again, or are you doing that with someone different?
Well, my son has been with me on the polar walks, on the mountains. When we set the world record for the fastest row across the Atlantic, we went from Spain to Antigua. He was in the boat, and I was in his boat rather than in my boat. I mean, he's younger and fitter and stronger than me now. And I hope he'll be in the Pacific boat, but he's got his own career now, and it's really not so easy to just take a couple of months off and disappear, because you're really out of touch for 2 months. So I'm hoping he'll be in the boat, but he's a grown man. He'll make his own decisions, and we'll see where we go.
Excellent. And your story is very interesting in terms of, being in a brand and then obviously working for other shareholders, and then deciding, as you were contemplating, reflecting, that you wanted to do something completely different. So really interested to hear a lot more about your experiences that have shaped your career today. But let's go right back to your either childhood or earlier years. And what was it about you growing up that shaped that early leadership style in terms of you being successful?
I've always been stubborn, determined, and I love a challenge. People who know me call me the world's most stubborn man. And then they say, but you're actually the world's most competitive man. And I say, well, then I should be the most stubborn, shouldn't I? Got to be the first. My dad was a mechanical engineer. He's still alive today. My mum was the village hairdresser. She's still alive today. So very much a working class, middle class background. Went to the local comprehensive school, but I always wanted to do more. I always had this ambition to do things, to see the world, to just to go out and have adventures in life. And so really, my mum and dad never pushed me either way. They always wanted me to work well at school and be successful at school. But they were very supportive in whatever I did. I had 2 sisters, and so we're quite a close family. And my ambitions were, as I say, to go and enjoy the adventure of life. You're a long time dead, so let's make sure before we get to that point, my view is I actually want to live, and I've put myself in situations where, you might be a bit on the edge of whether you live or you don't. Some of the mountains, and particularly the Atlantic row, we turned the boat over right in the middle of the Atlantic, and we got caught in a huge storm that smashed our oars. And you know what? When you're in those kind of situations, it's pretty exciting, and you are living. I mean, you are making sure that you don't die, because every focal point is on getting through that storm. We got caught in a big storm, and you've got to get through it. So those kind of things I find exciting. A lot of people would find them terrifying. It's pretty scary, but I find that stuff exciting, and I find business exciting. My latest company, I joined when it was 12 people, and it was a tiny, tiny business that had lost its way. And today we are the 3rd biggest, this is 7 years ago, today we are the 3rd biggest fibre network provider to businesses in the UK, second only to Openreach and Virgin Media O2. So it's been a heck of a journey with some amazing people who've all worked incredibly hard to get us to where we are. And it's fun. It's exciting.
Let's go back and try and work out a little bit more. It's interesting that you say that stubbornness and that competitiveness, which I think is present in a lot of leaders, particularly successful ones. I mean, can you identify how much of that was actually nature and how much of it was nurture in terms of what you also saw about you, not necessarily in your parents, but other people around you?
Well, I mean, nurture in as much as I said, my mum and dad always wanted me to do well at school. And they would encourage me. They wouldn't chase me. There wasn't a stick if I didn't do it. They wouldn't chase me around with a stick, but they encouraged me. But I looked outside my little world. I grew up in a little village in North Wales, and I looked outside and I saw people doing things and achieving things. And I thought, I can do that. And I mean, the classic for me was cricket. I played cricket for my school. I was a quick bowler. And then at about the age of 13, I was banned from playing cricket at school because I was bowling so quickly at that point that I frightened everybody. And so my school, bless them, instead of encouraging me, they banned me from playing. So I went off and I played club cricket with my dad first. I played in men's club cricket and progressed through that. And then I got picked for the county. And then I got picked for North Wales, went to school in Wales, got picked for North Wales. And then there was a national selection game. And they were going to make South Wales play North Wales, and they're going to choose a national team. And I didn't get invited to that selection match. And I looked at who was invited, and they were all the kids from the posh schools, the public schools, because many of the masters from the public schools were the selection committee for the national team. And I thought, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. I knew I was good enough to do that. And so I turned up. I decided I would go to where this match was. It took place in Bangor, actually. I went to Bangor, and I was asked, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I've come to play. And they said, what's your name? What's your name? I said, Gaskell. They said, well, you're not on the list. I said, no, I know I'm not on the list, but I'm here to play. Well, I'm not. And I argued my corner nicely. And I said, okay, we'll put you on the pitch. You can bowl 4 overs. And I bowled 4 overs, 2 maidens, and got 2 wickets for 4 runs. I still remember it. And I got selected. And that was the determination. Now, the flip side of that is knowing when you're not good enough. So from that kind of cricketing background, and, great, I was thrilled to bits to be selected for my country. I was picked up by Lancashire, and I was invited by a guy called Barry Wood, who was the England opening batsman at the time. He'd been coaching us, and he said, Kev, I want you to come to Lancashire. And I got taken at the age of 17. I don't think I was even driving, 17, 18. My dad drove me across to Old Trafford, and I was suddenly dropped into the cricket nets with the people I've been seeing on TV. I mean, this was Clive Lloyd and these kind of people. I was suddenly in there with them, and I'm bowling at them and they're bowling at me. And the gulf in performance was just extraordinary. I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never been exposed to real. I mean, these are the best in the world. Clive Lloyd's the best batsman in the world, and I'm bowling at him. And I was there for a while, and then I went to university, and I dropped out. I came away from Lancashire, and they asked why, and I said because I don't think I'm going to make it to the first team as a regular player, and I'm not prepared to be in the second team. I'm not interested. I'm either going to be in the first team, or I'll go and do something else that suits me better. So I didn't stay because I didn't think I was good enough. 2 years later, Barry Wood had gone to Derbyshire, and he called me, tracked me down, and he called me. He said, "Come to Derbyshire then." And I didn't go again because in my own mind, in my heart really, I didn't believe that I was good enough to play top first-class cricket. And if I'm going to do something, I want to do it to world-class level. And that's what I tried to, that's the approach I take to business. If we're going to be good, then let's be world-class. Somebody's always world-class. There's always somebody who is the best in the world at everything. Why is it not you? And that's my philosophy. Why is it not you? And when we broke the world record for the row across the Atlantic, and I've written this book called Catching Giants, and in Catching Giants, I tell a story of how we went from being novices, we'd never rowed, we were not rowers, to becoming world champions in 2.5 years. And how do you do that? What's the mindset? What's the approach? What are the principles we apply? What are the technology? What's the learning? How do you get that percentage better? And that's my approach to life. You know what? If you're going to do it properly. Or don't do it. There's no problem not doing it. If you're going to do it properly.
Thank you. And we're getting some really good insight in terms of you as a person now, as you as a leader. And what I find with a lot of leaders is that if they're driven and they're obviously driving for best in class, sometimes there's some people around them that struggle with that, and sometimes relationships suffer. So when did you first notice in your career that the way you were leading yourself and others based upon your past experiences and who you were, started to impact a little bit either your own leadership of yourself or others, or in key relationships, both in work and at home?
I mean, I can remember certain situations at university, because I was afraid of failure. Nobody in my family had ever been to university. And so I got to university, and for me that was a huge thing. And I loved it. I absolutely loved the degree I did. I did a civil engineering degree, and I loved it. But I worked and I worked and I worked. And I was always afraid. I mean, I would go out. I wasn't just working out, but I tended to work more than most people on my course. And they were probably brighter than me. But that was where I first noticed that I was prepared to put in the extra hours that it took so that I would get a good degree. And here on the wall behind me, this thing here is a certificate to say I got the Civil Engineering Prize as the best student of the year. And, I'm very proud of that. I'm actually very proud of that. And I was learning through that phase not to judge other people. I was observing. I don't judge. People do what they want to do. But I noticed when I got into business, and particularly I can remember situations in the chemical company that I worked for, which was an American business, Dow Corning, and it was a very driven business. And I was noticing that some people weren't prepared to run at the pace necessary, and they were falling off, they were disappearing. And this was a lesson in life for me. And it wasn't really me impacting them. It was the culture of the business, and it didn't work for them, and so they went somewhere else. Whereas I found it exciting. The fact that we could do stuff, the fact we closed the books, I still remember this today. I was the company accountant at that point. I was studying accountancy. And we closed the books in 3 days at the end of the year. We closed the books, done, because we built systems that facilitated that. And it was just exciting. And their philosophy was that you should process yourself out of a job within 3 years. So you make it so you don't need to do this job. And so we were forever developing and inventing processes and tools and technology to make sure that we got better and got better. And so I've seen it through my life, and where I've started to push, when I became the leader in various situations, I learned that you can push some people and they'll come with you for a while. But there are many people, if you push them, it doesn't work. They find it uncomfortable and unpleasant. And it took me a while to learn how to do it the other way around, which was to invite them, to inspire them, to engage them in the project, whatever the project is, and invite them to come and have fun. And really, that's been my philosophy as a leader. How do we have fun doing this? I spend a lot of time at work. If it's not fun, well then, wow, it's painful. So we try to create in our businesses a philosophy that is challenging, is dynamic, we move quickly, but we have fun. And still, Andrew, it doesn't work for everybody. ITS, which I referred to, we're a growing company, grew 60% last year, we'll grow 60% this year. And we have some people who come in and they don't last very long, and we've got a really excellent HR director, and she calls it cultural bounce. People bounce off the culture. And I'm not CEO, I'm a chairman, but the CEO is a fantastic leader. He's very similar to how I was 10 years ago. Very driven, but loves his people, will protect his people, will look after his people, but wants to move quickly. And so I observe him as if I'm observing myself now. And I look back and realize that you can invite people on a journey and invite people to go into do with you something that's special. But if you push them, it doesn't work. You've got to inspire people. People have got to want to come on this journey. And that really is what I learned over the early period of my leadership journey.
Something that's coming to mind there as you talk about that, and I find this a lot with leaders, whether they're chairs or chief executives or founders, but once they really reflect, sometimes they can see that at certain points in their career, they've almost got in their own way because of who they are. So with me, for example, I was very driven in terms of my leadership style and felt I was very resourceful, never really asked for any help from anybody. And therefore also I didn't want any help from my family either. So I cut a lot of that off actually in terms of relationships and things. So I was getting my own way there. That was just me. and I forewent some relationships. What about yourself? What have you reflected on to say, actually, at that point, I probably did get in my own way a little bit because it affected me here, either personal or professional?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's about trying too hard, putting too much into it, and not maintaining the balance of being a team leader versus being a team player. And certainly I look at myself now and I look back and reflect and think, blimey, Kev, you spent a lot of your life working, mate. You spent a lot of time driving and pushing and really trying to make a difference. So getting in my own way sometimes comes from demanding so much of myself. I am my own worst critic. Nobody criticizes me as hard as I criticize me. And sometimes, as I've got older, I've realized that you do have to take a break. And that break might be 5 minutes, might be a cup of tea, but just decompress, just step back and keep the world in perspective. Keep the world in perspective. I try not to get angry now. I used to get angry. I used to get really stomping angry that things didn't work, but I don't now. Now I try to step back and ask the question, well, why is that not working? Let's think about that in a different way. How do I encourage these people around me to use their creativity, their knowledge, their inspiration to drive this where I've run out of ideas here. And in the past, I always felt that I should be the one to do it, because if I'm a leader, I can show you how to do it, and then you'll respect me, and then you'll be able to do it. No, that's not the right way to do it. And I can remember a situation when I took over at Porsche, and we went, and I took the leadership team, which was 5-6 men. Didn't have any ladies in the team at that point. 5-6 guys off-site into the Brecon Beacons to do some outward boundy stuff and some classroom stuff up there. And the trainer set us some challenges. And these challenges were the things that I love to do for fun. So it was navigate your way from point A to point B, across that forest, through that river, over that mountain, and get there within 12 hours. Loved it. Fantastic. I did that for fun. So off I went. Follow me, boys. Here we go. And because it's what I do, I found it very easy. And I kind of got to the top of the mountain, and I sat there and thought, well, come on, where are you? Come on. I've shown you the way. Here we are. And we had a debrief with a trainer the following day, and he said to me, how do you think that went then? I said, well, it's all right. I said, I got there, and all they had to do was follow me. And he said, that was the worst piece of leadership I've ever seen. He said, and I've seen some bad leadership. He said, you just went, and you disappeared because you knew how to do it. And what happened? You left your team behind. And here we are. That's 30 years ago, and I'm sitting here thinking, heck, that's still today. That still hurts today. And he said, that was the worst piece of leadership I've ever seen. And I thought I was doing it right, because I was going out front, follow me, guys, here we go, da-da-da-da, here's how you read a compass, here's how you read a map. Got a rope on that. Wrong. But it took me a long time to learn. And experience is a wonderful thing, but it takes time to achieve it. And so as I've got older, got further in my career, this ability to step back, this ability not to have to be the one charging up the hill is, I know some people look at me and think, why is he not just telling us what to do? Because that's not how you lead people. I want them. I've told them where we're going. We're going to the top of that hill. Now let's work out together how we're getting there. And that took me some time, because I was the guy who just charged up the hill. And you know what? It works in some situations, but it mostly doesn't. So again, that's a learning for me in leadership.
I want to pick up on something you said there, Kevin, around this, you don't get as angry anymore. I'm the same. I used to be terrible with road rage. Now I just say, this is the way it is. I'm sitting there in the car and I never swear at people anymore. But there's definitely a distinction in my experience where leaders who are really successful over a sustainable period of time tend to have more of a positive outlook and see the gifts in opportunities that might be hard, versus negative frustration, resentment, anger, whatever it is. So just tell us a little bit about how your positive mindset has enabled you to maintain that success over the years.
I'm also a guy who would flash. I would flash angry, and the day I stopped was the day I ended up getting out of my car, and the other guy got out of his car, and we were nose to nose. And my son, who would be about 22 or 23 at the time, who's over 6 foot, he's got shoulders like this, he's a triathlete, big strong boy, and he squeezed between us and looked at me and he said, "Kev, I think it's impossible to die of embarrassment, and I'm about to do that, so would you please just get in the car?" And we got back in the car, and my daughter was in the car as well, and so they were both in their mid-20s, and they were looking at me saying, "What?" And I said, "Kids, I'm never going to do that again." And that was a changing point for me. What was the point of that? Me and this other bloke got ourselves all wound up, all over nothing, all over him cutting me up, whatever it was. So it was a particular incident that I remember well, and I haven't done it since. I don't do it. If somebody upsets me on the road, yeah, whatever. I try and put my mind into the point where if this were a light aircraft, would we be bouncing wings off each other? No, of course we wouldn't. We'd be giving each other lots of airspace. And so I try to take that view when I'm driving, but also in other situations. People get riled up, people get angry, and I'll always take a step back because I think there's a bigger game to play. Now, coming back to your positivity, I am an eternal optimist. I am. And I work with one chap who always says to me, "Kev, you're the optimist." And I say, "Yeah, I know I am." He says, "Yeah, but it doesn't always work out." I said, "No, it doesn't, but most of the time it will, because being an optimist means I don't accept no for an answer. So if the answer is no, or the project doesn't work, because I'm an optimist, I always think there's a way to get the project to work. And so I will come back at it and think again. So it's not a case of just believing that it'll just be so." And I was quite offended. My first book was called Inspired Leadership, and it was sold through Amazon. It all sold very well. But somebody left a review, and they called it the Pollyanna. Oh, this is a guy who believes in the Pollyanna principle. I didn't know what it was, so I looked it up. The Pollyanna principle is you believe it's going to be so, and therefore it is so. That's bloody nonsense. I don't believe that for a minute. But what I do believe is there is a way to achieve the goal. And what I tried to explain in that book was you do that far better by bringing the team with you. You do that much more efficiently if people understand where they're going and how they can play a part in making that happen. And so my positivity, my optimism is about not always smiling. I get hurt, I get down, but I come back and think, right, we can do this. I don't quite know how, but we can do this. And I've yet to find anything that deflects me from that belief. I mean, look, cricket, the example I gave you on cricket was a different thing because I believed that in my career I wanted to do A, B, and C. And cricket was kind of that's interesting, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't set my life out to become a professional cricketer. And because I was objective enough about it, I said, I'm not going down that route. I still played cricket till I was 35 or whatever it was. I had a lot of fun, played for some fantastic teams, played in some great leagues, and I enjoyed it. Business, I'm different. Business is what drives me. Building teams and building companies is what drives me. And so when it goes wrong, or if people push back, or if I have to stop, my optimism, my positivity remains. I just don't quite know how we're going to get there. At a peak point, we will get there. And the row was a classic. We had days where the wind was against us, where the waves. You've got to imagine you're in a 25-foot rowing boat and you've got 30-foot waves coming at you. I mean, it's pretty interesting place to be. And you've got to get through that lot. Well, how are we going to do it? Well, we don't know, but we'll just keep going, inch by inch, yard by yard, half a mile, another mile. Oh, look, we've done 10 miles. And that is the grit and the determination. You got to keep going. Business, you got to keep going.
That leads us to my next question, Kevin. The people out there listening to this and watching this that really relate to your story. So they may have come through a similar background in terms of working middle class. It may be that they actually were competitive in nature. Maybe they're adventurers. Whatever it is they relate to in terms of your story, what advice would you give to them for channeling those early experiences into sustainable leadership for them in the life they want to live? Because you chose at that point to go and do something for you.
Yeah, I think it's a case of, in my book, in my notebook, about every 1,000 days, I sit down and I write my plan for the next 1,000 days. What am I going to do? What is it that I want to achieve for my life for the next 1,000 days? Because, we're a long time dead, and people talk about reincarnation. Well, if I've been reincarnated, that's lovely, but I don't remember it. So I'm going to live this life the best way I know. And what I say to people, and I get a lot of students, I speak at schools and universities, I get a lot of students say to me, what's the tip? I say the tip is decide what you want to do and do it. That's the tip. Decide what you're passionate about. Decide what it is that lights your fire and go and do it. Don't do something else because somebody tells you to. Your parents are great, but don't let them force you to become an accountant, a lawyer, a gardener, or what. Don't. What is it you want to do? And then follow that dream. And that dream can change. I always wanted to be a civil engineer. I did it for 5 years. Decided I didn't want to do it any longer. I wanted to be an accountant because it gave me a different skill. I did that for 4 years. Then I didn't want to do it any longer. I worked in the motor industry for whatever it was, 15, 18 years. Then I didn't want to do it any longer. Now I work in technology. It's great fun. Do I want to do it forever? No. My next phase of my career is I want to do more lecturing, speaking. I want to write books. I want to support teams. That's what I enjoy doing now. So I want to do that. So for people to be encouraged, if somebody says to me, how can you help me? I say, I can't help you. You help yourself. But you help yourself by deciding where it is you're going to go and what you're prepared to give up to get there. Because to be successful, it doesn't come easy. There's a lot of work involved. You've got to concentrate on it. You've got to be prepared to put the hours into it. You've got to really practice at it. The Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours, is that a real thing? I don't know. What I do know is that's how I run my leadership. I do it all the time. I never stop doing it. I work long hours. It's Friday afternoon. When we finish this conversation, I've got a pile of stuff I'm going to do today, and I will do it. And I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's Friday night. That stuff needs doing, and that stuff will get done. And that's the determination that leaders need to become. I'm not for a minute suggesting I'm good at it, but to become good at it. It's that determination. It's no different to sportsmen or sportswomen or anything else. It doesn't just happen. You can have a natural skill, but you've got to hone that skill. You've got to practice. You've got to build the muscle memory. You've got to build the strength, the perseverance, the stamina. All of that is the same in leadership. You've got to keep doing it, get better at it and better at it, and learn from the mistakes. You'll lose a game in a match. Doesn't matter. Reflect on it, understand why, then go back and win the next game. You're here to win the match. And so I would say to people, if your heart isn't in it, you won't be successful. So if you want a tip, decide what it is you want to do. You really, really want to do, and then go and do it.
Excellent. Kevin, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with the audience today. I'm sure many of them will have actually been inspired to reflect on their own leadership style, how they lead themselves to that point. Am I really living the life that I want to? But also about how to actually lead others more effectively and how they might want to take a different approach in the future. So I really want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your experiences with us today. And it's been great to speak with you.
You're welcome. It was great to talk to you, and thank you for the invitation.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.